So I've just been discussing offline with a couple of people the validity of these flights in the southern hemisphere between countries like South America, Africa and Australia. And just recently I did actually circumnavigate the Earth from Australia on the way to Rio in Brazil for the Olympic Games, and then we came home via Cape Town, Africa, Perth and Sydney. And what I have here is a small handheld GPS. It's just a little Bluetooth GPS called a Bad Elf GPS Pro. This is just my own personal device. I do carry it with me, but most of the time I don't even bother using it. However, if the flight's a bit unusual, what I'll do is I'll turn it on and it will actually record the flight. It records its waypoints every 10 seconds. As you can see, it's in flight mode there. So it logs the positions, and what I can then do is just download that and have a look at it later in an app. So this is my iPad. We go into the Bad Elf app and we'll go to the trips. What I've actually done is I've already got this one downloaded. This is the Wednesday morning flight, which is the return from Rio to Cape Town. If we go into it, it's going to show you the route, Rio to Cape Town. Then we refueled and we continued. Now, unfortunately, the battery on this thing only goes for about 12 hours. So by that stage, it was running out as it was on the way to Australia. You can see the Great Circle route was looking correct. But anyway, we won't worry about that. We'll just focus on the Rio to Cape Town leg. We go into satellite mode. There's the flight. And what you see down the bottom here is the speed. Okay, so the speed, and then the speed reduces when we landed and refueled, and that was about the 6 hour mark because it was a 6.2 hour flight from Rio to Cape Town. We had good tailwinds. If we look at the altitude profile, that's this blue line here. Okay, you'll see we climbed, we maintained level till about halfway, at which point we become lighter from burning off fuel, so we can climb up to a more efficient altitude, and that's what you see. That's called a step climb. It's a fairly common thing that airliners do. You can research that yourself. Then we landed again about the 6 hour mark, and on the ground refueled and departed again. Now this time we were a little bit heavier for this next leg because it was a longer leg. We had more fuel, so we didn't climb as high, and then we did a step climb as soon as we had the opportunity to do that. But one of the great features about this little GPS is that it allows you to export the GPS log file as a KML file, which can be inserted into Google Earth Pro or Google Earth, and then you can analyze the flight in detail. So share KML files. I've actually done that, and I've loaded that up already into Google Earth Pro. Now what I'll do is I'll link to this file so you can load that in and test it yourself. But what I recommend you do is then go into the actual settings and select UTC time, okay? Because that's then going to allow you to scroll through the whole flight, and you might see that little icon moving as I scroll across the top here, as I move the time, and that's going to allow you to verify where we were at any given point in time based on UTC time, and I'm going to look at that in a little bit more detail shortly. But let's have a look at the actual flight log. Now I'm actually redoing this video because I zoomed in on this flight log and it just got blurry and it stayed blurry, so I won't zoom in, but hopefully you can see that. There's Gallio Airport to Cape Town, 3319 nautical miles. We started up at 0107 UTC and we shut down at 0733 UTC. Okay, actual takeoff time was 0113, actual landing was 0727, for a total flight time of 6.2. Now you can check these times yourself, and then if you have a look at the next leg from Cape Town to Perth, we took off at 0840, started up at 0834, which I'll discuss in a little bit more detail. But just closing that, let's bring up Google Earth again. Let's go through some of these times. Now I'll just turn off the daylight and darkness so we can see it in a bit more detail, but I will explain that more shortly. Let's go back to the takeoff time. You'll see it started recording at 1:13 UTC and it stopped recording down here at about 7:20, 6:27, okay, when we landed. Okay, and I'm going to go through that in a bit more detail shortly. But what I did during this flight also is obtain a number of videos, and one of the ones we can look at here is this one. Notice where we were. We were not quite halfway between Rio and South Africa, and if we pan across, there's another map showing the same thing, and there's another map showing the same thing, showing our position. Now if I just go forward slowly, you'll see we get a good look at the aircraft clock, which is in UTC. So there we go, 0346 UTC. We were not quite halfway. Okay, let's have a look at that in the Google Earth Pro log. So 03, we want 46, there's 45, there's 48, so about there. So again, you can see that GPS log confirms what we see in the video. That's where we were at that particular time. Okay, and it was night time. You see that? Now as we continue moving forward, you can see we're moving and we're meeting the daylight. So you can see we meet the daylight about there. Okay, it's just starting to see the sunrise. Okay, so it's before we reach Africa, maybe an hour before we touch down, and again I have another video confirming that. Okay, there's the sunrise, or the sun starting to come up, and if we pan across and we have a look at this little which was just a satellite profile map, which was telling us when we were going to get onboard Wi-Fi coverage again. And what we can see there is our little position just before we reach Africa. Okay, so that's again confirming what we saw in the video. Now, obviously when we landed, that's Cape Town. Now, I'll just try and zoom in. This is where it went wrong last time, but maybe you can see that showing Cape Town, Africa. And that's the video while we were refueling. Okay, so the other thing to look at is you can zoom right in. Now this is the beauty of this little application, and it will even show you the maneuver for the landing. Okay, so as we were coming in, you'll see we did a vector. This is called a radar vector. They vectored us around onto a final approach. So we came around and then we landed. Now when we're on the ground, it wasn't recording any waypoints because I have the Bad Elf set up to ignore anything below about 50 miles per hour, so it's only recording actual flight times. There we are on the ground from 7, say 20, 27. Let's just move it forward. There's refueling, takes about an hour to refuel and do our customs clearance, and then just after 8:30 we start flying again. Okay, and off we go on the next sector. And there we go. Okay, so again that confirms with the actual log that we started up at 0834, we were flying again by 8:40. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll upload this KML file, I'll upload this video, and you can download it yourselves. What I might even do is just upload separately these videos which I showed you as well, which you can just verify times and dates and places and location as being in Cape Town. But this should be fairly solid evidence, and I won't say the word proof because I can't prove anything to you. Okay, you can only prove it to yourselves. I can prove it to myself because I've done this flight. I know these flights exist. I do the math, I do the flights, I see the curvature. I can prove it to myself. I can't prove it to you. You need to prove this to yourself. So this is really just evidence. You can take it for what it's worth, you can ignore it. It really doesn't worry me because it makes no difference what other people believe, really. I know what I can see, and I know what I can verify. So please feel free to analyse this yourself and draw your own conclusion.